Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cognitive Discourse. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about Texas finally becoming a constitutional carry state. Now, this may ruffle some feathers because some people may be anti-gun, but for those of you who are pro-gun, this was a win for us. And yes, I say us because I am pro-2A. You may not have known that about me, but if you've listened to my previous episodes, I think my views kind of expressed or I kind of line up with that. So with this, I wanted to kind of just talk about it. With the constitutional carry going in place, there were seven orders that were signed by Governor Abbott and were pushed through. And one of them being the main one, which is you don't need a concealed carry license to carry a firearm. Now, I'll give my opinions on that as I read. One of my family members had posted. He doesn't live in Texas, but he is a Texas-born native, and I think he's eventually going to come back home eventually, I hope. But, he basically on his Facebook congratulated Texas for becoming constitutional carry. And first off, I also want to just point this out. Just because you are pro-A and you agree to constitutional carry and believe that living, you're being able to protect your life is a human right, does not make you a right-wing nut, does not make you Republican by default or a conservative. It doesn't make you a Trumpster. It doesn't do any of that. So if that's in your head right now, then let's throw that out the window, okay? Let's not think about that, because the person in my family who posted this he'll never say he's a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's not a Trumper. He's none of that. So let's just keep that in mind. Just because you're pro-A doesn't mean that you fall in line with that stuff, which typically when you get lumped into those things, you get called things that you aren't, which is like a racist, a bigot, a fascist, all that stuff. So we're not going to get into all of that. What I want to cover is I just want to talk about the fact that Texas became a constitutional carry, the fact that I'm all for that, being a gun owner myself, and that I am happy that that's a thing. Because before I get into it, because I want to read, I did have a conversation with somebody who's not for it. And so I want to be able to give you kind of insight into a little bit of how I feel about it, but also just my debate with this individual. Again, that's kind of what I like about this podcast. That's what the whole point of this is to have, a healthy debate. But I want to show you how people tend to get too emotional when you try to debate them on things. But anyway, with that said, there's a video that I posted in the comments as well later on down the line, and I'll kind of explain one of the reasons why seeing that video made me really not want to further the process to get a license, because I went to training when I got my first firearm. I took the test. I passed the test. I aced the test. Actually, I did really well on my shooting test. I did really well on my written test, and I was all ready to get my license to conceal carry. The only thing that was holding me back was I was being lazy and procrastinating on going and getting my fingerprint done and doing all the paperwork basically that I have to do to have the license sent to me. So some will say I wasted my $60, $70. But for me, I learned a lot. I sat in a class that was 8 hours long. I learned about, the laws. Of course, now they're going to kind of change a little bit, but I still learned about different things. I learned about, what it means to be in a self-defense situation, living in Texas, what kind of rules we have and boundaries that we have that can basically make or break if it's a defensive self-defense or if it's considered a murder. So, I learned a lot about that stuff. And then, of course, I got to take my test and my shooting test, and the test itself really kind of put pressure on me to do well. So I got to know what it's like to shoot under pressure, which I think really makes a huge difference in accuracy. But I did really well. And so before we get into this, just understand that I am very pro-gun, but I'm pro-gun because I'm also very pro being able to defend you and your family against criminals. I'm anti-criminal. Let's put it that way. Okay. So I want to be able to have the same big stick that the criminals are allowed to have. And when I say they're allowed to have it because they don't follow the rules. A lot of these laws hurt, law-abiding citizens. And me being a father of two, I want to be able to have all the tools that I need to protect my family. So let's get into this, and I'll read this stuff, and I'll kind of chime in here and there. But I thought that this was going to be a great episode because I had already planned on doing an episode on constitutional carry being passed in Texas. It just so happens my cousin had posted this, and I went ahead and found a guy who didn't agree with it, and we had a conversation, and I was like, you know what, I think this is something that I like to share because this guy's sentiment may share the sentiment with some of you guys who are listening now. So what I want to say is if you're listening to this and you're either on the fence or you don't agree with it, please just kind of go into this with an open mind and understand that, I completely understand where he's coming from, and I have my counterpoints and he has his counterpoints. So we'll get into this, and I hope you guys enjoy this. So my cousin had posted, "Congrats to Texas for finally becoming a constitutional state." That was the original post. A buddy of his goes, "Huh?" ? My cousin says, "As of September 1st, Texas will no longer require a permit for conceal or open carry." Now, before I get more further into that, there is more, and I think I chime in on that as well, and I say that there were 7 orders that were passed, that being the biggest one. Other ones were basically saying, like, holster, the holster that you decide to use doesn't matter. So because it's conceal and open carry, you can open carry on the outside of your waistband, on the inside of your waistband. You can carry appendix on your side, on the back of your back. You could even get those old cowboy over the shoulder ones that you hold the gun under your armpit, and then you have the magazine on the other side. Or if you want to go straight cowboy, you have your 2 6-shooters there. But holsters don't matter. You can have any kind of holster you want. Another one was if you're passing through Texas, you're not a Texas local, and you're just passing through, and you get stopped and have a firearm in your vehicle, that's completely okay and legal now. And there's a few other ones. I know that he had some stuff too that basically was a big middle finger to the federal government as far as saying, like, no matter what they decide to do, it's not going to affect Texas. Texas is going to govern itself with its state laws. And then there was another one about suppressors. If the suppressors are made in Texas and sold in Texas, they can be purchased in Texas. So there's a bunch of stuff there, and I'm still pretty new to politics, so I don't know how much that trumps, how much state regulations trump federal regulations and all that stuff. But just knowing that there's a fight there, and that pro 2A people are protected is kind of cool. So anyway, back to the conversation. So my cousin said as of September 1st, Texas will no longer require a permit to conceal or open carry. And his friend said, "Yeah, that's not the best idea." And my cousin says, "I'm curious to why you think that." Then he said, "It's not the Wild West anymore. And to believe people do not need training to carry a lethal weapon is not the thing I feel comfortable with. It's like, now, why do we need driver's license, trade license, etc.? And here's where I chime in. So I replied, "It doesn't mean you can't still take a class. I took a class and I passed it, but I didn't finish the paperwork needed to get my license. Now I don't have to worry about it because I can carry without one. You should be more worried about the people that have illegal firearms carrying illegally than people that carry because they want to protect themselves and their family. I bet you that guns being stolen from cars will also decrease. And Texas will also be a lot safer because guess what? The criminals don't like to be shot back at." Now, to clarify what I meant at the very bottom, because he didn't mention anything, but at the very bottom, I said about guns being stolen in cars. What I mean by that is me being a gun owner, me not having a license. I still carried on me, and I still carried in my truck, but a lot of times I would leave it in my truck if I went into a store. So it defeated the purpose of me actually carrying a firearm because my handgun's in my truck. If I need it to protect my family while I'm in a store, I have to get to my truck first. So it kind of defeated the purpose. But again, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I know I couldn't carry in there because I didn't have a license to carry. So you see what I'm saying? The only thing that these gun laws hurt are the people who are trying to follow these rules. And the only people who follow the rules are people who don't have the intentions of harming other people. It's only criminals that don't give a shit, and they're going to do what they want. So just because I was following a law and a criminal comes in, I can now possibly lose my life or my family's lives because I was following a law put in place by people who have armed guards 24/7. Does that make sense? So that's what I was meaning by that statement, is that now with that, I can carry my gun on me. I can take it into the stores with me. Okay? I further added about what I was saying about him passing more stuff. We can also use any holster we wish, and suppressors made in Texas, sold in Texas, can be owned in Texas. By the way, driving a car is a privilege. It's not a basic human right. Just FYI. And then he replies, yeah, I disagree. It is just a way to feel tough and more for show. Not everybody takes a class. Again, it's not the Wild West, and I think it's funny that people don't need a permit anymore. So then you would not have a problem with a plumber or an electrician to be verified and do work on your home. Maybe someone does not need a permit to drive a car. This is just a way to play cowboy or be army boy. Do you feel good about your FYI? There are a lot of things that are a privilege. And then he posted a little meme of a cowboy, a dude drawing a gun as a cowboy. And so my response was, I don't carry to feel tough. And by the way, this is something that I've heard this argument plenty of times with the Wild West, and people carry to feel tough and they want to play. I've never heard army or cowboy, but I have heard like outlaw biker and stuff like that. But anyway, so I've heard it all before. I've heard his argument before. So I basically just said, I don't carry to feel tough. I do carry to protect my kids and wife. On long hauls, I also take my AR, and it's also my home defense weapon. My guns are like anything else I've gotten good with. It's called going to the range or just dry firing at home. Practice makes permanent. You can think any way you want, but telling me I can't own something because it makes you feel uncomfortable is not a valid argument. Sorry, but when seconds matter, cops are only a minute away. Again, having a plumber or an electrician come and fix a problem is a luxury, not a basic human right. Try again. Sorry if you hear my clicking on my mouse. I'm reading this stuff off my computer. And so then his response was, you are just one individual. Owning a gun is a privilege as well. So there he's doing a cop-out. So I'm trying to give I'm giving valid reasons as to why we should be able to have guns. And again, I'm trying to counter his argument. And so he's just backpedaling and saying, well, you're just one person. It's like, well, I'm one of many. I'm not the only responsible gun owner. You know what I mean? And I haven't owned firearms very long. So to tell me you're just one individual, that seems like it's a cop-out. And then also now he's saying owning a gun is a privilege, and it's not. So my response basically goes as stated. I disagree. Living and being able to protect yourself is not a privilege. You know, again, I think that's a basic human right. Being able to protect yourself from somebody who's going to harm you, that's not a privilege. I don't have a privilege to protect myself. It's a basic human right. So then I said, maybe do some research. Places that are more pro-gun tend to be safer than places with strict gun laws. Facts outweigh your feelings, but keep thinking the way you do. Hopefully you never fall victim to a home invasion. But if you do, I hope your tea and cookie offering to the home invaders will keep you safe. So there I took a little jab at him, but I was trying to make a point. You know, when home invaders come into your house, I've heard that argument too, where they're talking about, well, you know, they're just coming to take stuff. Just you're really gonna kill somebody over your stuff, and it's like, yeah, because you forfeited your right to live when you broke into my house. You're coming into my home. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're capable of, and I'm not going to sit there and take the time to ask you, oh, you just want to take one of my dozen TVs that I have? Oh, okay, yeah, go for it. It's not going to happen. I don't know if you're going to come take my TV or if you're coming in here to rape my wife, rape my kids, hurt my kids, torture us. I don't know what, set us on fire. I don't know what you're coming in to do. So I'm not going to sit there and try to have a conversation with somebody who I don't know at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when you decide to come into my house. By the way, most home invaders, it's not just one person. It's 3 or 4 people. So keep that in mind. So then I also said, by the way, I'm one individual, but most of my friends are the same way. We go to the range together, we train together. So your logic is flawed. You're just another mainstream media zombie. And then he replied, still disagree. Being able to carry a weapon outside of the home is not a right, it's a privilege. But you and I can continue to go back and forth, which I will say your logic is not sound, as you will say mine. So you do you. But I wasn't done there. I was not going to try to, I could see he was trying to wave the white flag there, but I wasn't going to let up. So I replied, how is it a privilege? So our lives aren't a basic human right outside of our homes? I'm not allowed to defend my well-being and those around me outside of my home? How does that make any sense to you? Sorry, but if I'm met by someone that aims to hurt me or my loved ones, they will be met with a defensive force. I don't mean to kill anyone, but I will neutralize the threat, even if that means having to kill the threat. Just because you can't go the distance doesn't mean you can tell others that they can't. Criminals target the weak and defenseless. And also, people strike when they choose to. So I want to have as much of an advantage in a disadvantaged situation. Bet you think I should only have 10 rounds max too, huh? And then I also replied, if you're not comfortable carrying a firearm, so be it. I'd rather you not if you can't trust yourself with one. But that doesn't mean I can't or shouldn't. But rest assured, if we are in a public place together and someone tries to harm you, I'll be ready to defend you where you are defenseless. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. At the end of the day, it's a tool I keep close, just like a knife. I always have one on my person too. Not because I want to go stabby on everybody, but because you never know when you might need it. So let me clarify what I was saying in that section and in the section before he basically was trying to wave the white flag. So when I was saying that it's like anything else that I need to practice, I'm a musician. I didn't learn how to play guitar overnight. I didn't learn how to play bass overnight. This podcasting, I didn't learn how to do all the editing and all that stuff overnight. I took the time and I vested my time in becoming good with those things, becoming proficient at being a musician, at being a podcaster. And I do that same thing with my guns. I take the time to practice and get very comfortable with my firearms so that we don't have accidents. I take the time to talk to my family about firearms and teach them good habits so we can weed out the bad habits and we can bring down the chances of something bad happening within a misfire or, whatever, what have you. And I have little ones, man. And if you can ask my 5-year-old, you can show her one of my guns and she knows, those are daddy's. We don't play with those. We don't touch those. Those are daddy's guns. I wasn't home one night and something went into my back patio. I was out of town. I was, taking care of a family friend. I was giving him a lift out of town, and my wife and kids were by themselves. And my wife heard something out in the patio, so she grabbed one of the guns and went to go check on it. And when I got home, I got told about it, and my wife was laughing because she even told me, yeah, Rogie got mad at me. I was like, why? She goes, because I touched your gun, and Daddy said, she goes, those are Daddy's guns. We don't touch Daddy's guns. So my kids know. It's about communicating and talking to people and teaching people the proper habits and proper gun training. Now, in this next conversation that I had with him, I mentioned, about him, if he's not comfortable carrying, that's fine. Now, I want you to understand what I just read you. Keep that in mind when I just read it. If you need to go back and listen to it again, go back. Because listen to how he tries to twist it. I never said that he didn't own guns. He got mad because of that, and he thinks I'm calling him weak. I never said that. He painted himself that way. So I'll continue reading. So his response was, I think I've done pretty good not needing a gun for me to go shopping, to amusement parks, ball games, etc. My home is protected, and I do not think people need certain guns as they become a toy or a trophy to have, but that is just my opinion. I'm glad that you assume that I do not have protection. So because I have a differing opinion, you think I'm weak. Because I don't say, yeah, I got guns galore and I run around with that. I don't believe in having guns. I just believe in regulating, just like other things that can cause potential harm, like driving a car, for instance. Here he goes with the car shit again. So at this point, my cousin had come in, and I'm going to read his at the end because his is not only very long, but it's pretty much his view, and he doesn't respond back. So I'm going to leave his, and he words it way better than I do. My cousin is very good with words. So I'm going to read his last. So I'm going to continue the back and forth between me and this guy. So my response was, I never said that you didn't have firearms, but by the way you're talking is what can lead one to assume, no? And just because I believe one shouldn't tell others that they can and can't do with their guns doesn't mean I'm running around letting everybody know I'm carrying. You keep bringing up this driving thing, which I find hilarious, and you don't have the answer to this question. And you don't have to answer this question, but chances are you have been texting and driving. Or at the very least, you've looked down at your phone while driving. Chances of something bad happening is far greater than some person conceal carrying. So I'm basically pointing out, like, you keep bringing up the driving thing, and you're talking about how guns are dangerous, but chances are you're being a hypocrite in the sense of you've probably texted and drove, or you've looked down, you've done something in your car and been distracted while driving. And the chances of you getting into an accident are way higher than somebody getting accidentally shot. Okay? People forget that when you get behind that wheel, you're driving a 3-ton, killing machine. And people forget that. And yeah. Okay. So back to what I was saying. So chances of something bad happening is far greater than some person conceal carrying. And since we are on the topic, you do realize you're more likely to get hit by a drunk driver than shot by someone you see not suitable to have a certain firearm. And I put in parentheses pointing at your regulation comment. But since you believe Texas will be less safe having armed law-abiding citizens, then you're more than welcome to leave. Maybe try a blue state like California, or maybe Oregon. I'm sure you'll fit right in. But a bit of advice, don't start a business there. It might get burned down. Doesn't matter how much virtue signaling you do. Now, I poked at him again at the end because I kind of went and looked at his page, and let's just say me and him are on completely opposite spectrums. So I'll continue reading. And by the way, we should be able to acquire any firearm that we wish. I want a bigger stick than the bad guy. I want more rounds than them too. And based on who we have in office right now, I want to be able to protect my freedom from a government that has more interest in foreign affairs than lining their pockets than the American people they are supposed to represent. Also, you did what every anti-gunner does by talking about that you own firearms too. It's comical at this point. So I was just basically pointing out, like, every person who's anti-gun, it tends to always point out that they've fired guns, or they've owned guns in the past, or they own guns in the present, and that stuff is always just a cop-out. Like, it's the same thing like with Biden saying, go step outside your porch and fire 2 rounds into the air. That'll scare the bad guy off. Okay, one, you're not supposed to do that. You don't fire just in the air. Bullets have to come back down. Plus, you learn in class that you need to know what your target is and what's beyond your target. So when you're shooting, you're not just shooting your target, but everything that's behind that target. So again, it's dumb logic. It's flawed logic. It's people who don't know about firearms, who pretend they do, who try to have this debate. And that's why I find it comical at that point. And he responds, yeah, and you sound like the same as every "Don't Take My Guns" NRA pamphlet. So now we're starting to get emotions in here. Again, I've taken some jabs at him, so I can see why he's getting a little irritated. And I said, yeah, and you're the typical virtue signaling, mainstream media watching Biden supporter. Your point? And then he replies, plus, I never said I was anti-gun. I just think it's comical that we need to carry everywhere. But guess we had some different experiences. Glad you like your toys. I mean, tools. Oh boy, you're so funny. Let me guess, the libtard term and going to come out now. I'm going to come out now and say you're going to use snowflake. What else you got? And then my response was, well, I hope you never get put in a situation where you need it. I live with my head on a swivel because I know how dark people can be. But enjoy your fantasy world of peace and harmony. And you're right. I have my views because I've seen how dark the world can be. I've also seen what a bullet can do to the human body, and I understand sometimes 10 rounds aren't enough. But don't get it twisted. I don't live in fear. It's actually the opposite. I live proactively, and I stay aware of my surroundings. The thing is, you think I'm some gun-toting tough guy, when the reality is, because I stay aware of my surroundings, chances are I'll notice something pop off before it does, so I can get out of the situation before I or my family is in danger. My face isn't glued to my phone, nor do I let anything distract me while I'm in public. So yes, my guns are tools. They're not toys. The fact that you view them as such worries me that you are a gun owner. Seems like you're projecting your way of thinking and it's clouding your judgment on said issue. But hey, what do I know? I'm just stuck in the Wild West. Yee-haw, bang bang. And I don't use the word libtard or snowflake because I don't go out of my way to be mean to people that don't agree with me. I'm more of a facts over feelings kind of person. It's what has shaped my view on things, but nice try. By the way, thanks for the content. I'm doing an episode on constitutional carry that was just passed. This will be a great viewpoint to go over. And after that, he no longer replied. But then someone else came in and they left their point. And we didn't really have a back and forth, but I'll go ahead and read his anyway because it's part of the thread. But because it also goes into what I was going to share about the whole license thing. So this person said, prior to COVID, I shot every other weekend, about 500 rounds at the range. I go to the tactical range and I practice some tactical shooting on occasion. I'm okay. I think I can protect myself if the need arises. However, this new law, in my opinion, is a terrible idea. I did an extensive background go check so officers know that I'm the good guy. He's explaining he got his concealed carry permit. Now, every Tom, Dick, and Harry can carry, which if you drive in Dallas, there's lots of idiots. I'm sure you have seen the awful shooting at the range now that guy can carry without proper training or knowledge of the law. Maybe I'm looking at this pessimistically, but I don't imagine this will be an effective deterrent as they imagine. I fear it may have tragic results. So I posted a video right after that, and the video is on YouTube. It's called Why I'm Seriously Considering Not Renewing My Carry Permit. If you can find it, it's a dude. He's an ex-cop, and the video starts with him shooting at his own private range. If you can find that video, just put that title in, Why I'm Seriously Considering Not Renewing My Carry Permit. And watch that video. He explains as to that's the video that I mentioned earlier in this episode that got me to really kind of second guess going and getting my concealed carry. He tells a story about when he was in the force, the police force, an encounter he had with a law-abiding citizen, a gun carry permit owner, and one of his rookie cops in a basic traffic stop. And he tells a story about how the rookie cop kind of reacted to the law-abiding citizen who also happened to carry a firearm. So yeah, check out that video and it'll kind of add perspective as to, again, why I'm also very constitutional carry. But I also commented and said, maybe this will give you a different perspective. Even without being forced to go to a class, most law-abiding citizens will still inform an officer that they carry. So what I meant by that is, even though the constitutional carry is in place, if I get pulled over by an officer, and this is even before that, if I have a firearm in my vehicle, I'm aware that I'm supposed to inform law enforcement. So regardless if I have a license or not, when a cop pulls me over, I'm going to inform them, hey, just so you know, I do have a firearm and the firearm is located blah, blah, blah. And again, cops aren't going to worry about you. If you've come out and you told them, they're not worried about you. The people that they're worried about are the ones that are carrying that don't tell them, and then they have malicious intent. But informing a cop that you have a firearm and where it's located tends to actually ease a cop's mind. Even though they know that you have something that could kill them, the fact that you came out and told them and said, hey, I have a firearm, it's in the glove box, or hey, it's on my right side, or it's in the small of my back, or I'm appendix carrying, it puts the officer at ease. It lets them know, okay, this guy doesn't have any ill intent for the most part. You know what I mean? They're still going to be on guard, but it eases a little bit of the tension. And then, so I also commented, I said, by the way, can I just point out the irony of the it's okay for me, but not the mentality that I'm seeing here? Or am I the only one noticing it? And then he responded, the assumption that is being made is smart will mean well-practiced people will carry. I, for one, am not worried about them. I'm worried about the idiots. There are lots of them. Which I responded, well, guess what? Those quote-unquote idiots that you were worried about probably carried without a concealed carry license anyway. Again, all the gun laws do are hurt the law-abiding citizen. I don't understand how people don't seem to let this sink in. And what I meant by that is the idiots that these people keep saying, and that argument of people saying, well, now everybody can carry, so a bunch of dumbasses are going to buy guns, and now they're going to carry. Chances are those dumbasses were already carrying firearms, regardless of what the law said. Again, the laws only hurt people who care about the laws. I'm one of those. I carry a firearm to protect my family, but because there's laws there, I don't want to carry in a public place where I might actually have to use it for self-defense, and because of a stupid law, I go to jail for wanting to protect my family. I don't understand what part of that doesn't sink in for people. And if you're one of those people, please leave a comment. Let me know, because I don't understand that mentality. I don't get it. With constitutional carry, now I can carry wherever I please, unless specified by said business, which guess what? I'm not going to argue with that business. And that's one of the things that I want you to understand too. I don't like pro-gunners who do that. If you're one of those pro-gunners who go into a restaurant and a manager comes up to you and asks you to leave because you're carrying, and you give them all this shit, dude, just get up and leave. Don't give them your money. Don't give them your business. Be an adult about it. There's no reason to sit there and argue. Okay, don't pull this is America, freedom, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's their business. It's their private business. If they want to be a gun-free zone, then by all means. I will patron places that are pro-gun. Because I guarantee you those places aren't getting robbed. So understand that too. That, like, I do understand where that frustration comes in. I get that. I'm not one of those people. I want to carry a firearm to protect my family in a scenario where it may be needed. I don't carry it with the intention of saying I need to shoot someone. I can't wait till I get into a fight here so I can use it. That's not my mentality. My mentality is, again, I have it because when seconds matter, the police are only minutes away. And I support police. I'm pro-police. I back the blue. But I'm not going to put 100% of my faith and my life and my family's lives in their hands. I want to be able to protect my family on the fly. And then when something happens in a situation and it calls for that, I want to be ready. And if you're one of those people who believe that a 10-round magazine is enough to protect, and you try to use that logic, well, if you need more than 10 rounds, then maybe you need better. No. Don't do that. Because you've obviously never seen what a bullet does to the human body. If you think that and you believe that, I highly urge you to go on YouTube and look for police-involved shootings where people have been on drugs. There was one where an old man, he was an older guy. He was probably in his late 50s, early 60s, is hitting a cop with a big-ass stick. He's just not a small stick. This thing could have killed the cop. And the cop defends himself, and he empties a 15-round magazine into this dude, and he walks it off like nothing. There's another video on YouTube of a guy who was going to shoot up I think it was a Walmart warehouse. It was a distribution center. And the cops roll up, and the cop had an AR-15, and he shot the guy through a truck window. And the guy, he was a big dude. He didn't drop right away. And he had a few rounds pumped into him from an AR-15. Remember, the most deadly weapon in some of you guys' eyes. And it took him a while to bleed out before he fell. Let's also understand that, like I said earlier, home invasions typically have more than one person. And if you're gonna hold me to only 10 rounds of magazine, let's use that math. Let's say at minimum 3 people break into your home. You have a 10-round magazine. That means that you only have 3 bullets per criminal. It's dark. It's in the middle of the night. You're half asleep. You have 3 plus 1, right? So you have 3 rounds that can go per person, and then you have 1 in case you miss. The margin for error is very, very slim there. I don't like those odds. I much rather have an AR-15 that holds 30 rounds with my red dot on it, that I can sweep a house quick and be efficient with it, be more. And again, if you've never fired a firearm, you don't understand that it's a lot harder to be accurate with a handgun than it is an AR-15 or any kind of rifle. Anybody, especially a novice shooter, will be more accurate with a rifle than they will with a handgun. And for those who think that 10 rounds, that's where the capacity should be, then you're not just going after AR-15s. You're going after handguns. I have a Glock 19. The magazines that came with it, when I bought it, were 15 rounds. They hold 15 rounds. So you're telling me my own handgun, I can't have 15 rounds in it. Hell, I have a SIG that originally it's a small one and it's meant to hold 10 rounds. I have extensions for it where I can hold 12 and 15. And that's a little pocket gun. You're telling me that gun can't be. I have to carry just only the 10 rounds in that. I'm sorry, but you can't convince me that 10 rounds is enough. Like I said, if you believe that, please do some research. Go to YouTube and type in police confrontations and watch how hard it is to stop people. Because you don't know what that person's capable of. You don't know what kind of drugs they're on, or just their mental fortitude, being able to take multiple rounds to the chest. And that's if you can even fucking hit them in the chest. Again, 3 people break into your house. You have 10 rounds. And you could be like, oh, well, you have multiple magazines. Yeah, but if you're in the middle of the night, you're half asleep, the adrenaline's pumping, how quickly can you reload? Those are the things you got to think about. And again, not everybody's built to be able to kill. I get that. And if you're not one of those people, then I get that. But what I'm against is people telling other people what they can and can't do with their lives and how they can and can't protect their lives. If you're not pro-gun and you don't like guns, that's fine. But you're not going to tell me how to protect my family. Does that make sense? Anyway, I want to leave with this last statement here, and this is the one that I told you that my cousin made. And his is a little bit longer, but I think he said it perfectly, and I think he really outlined it well. So that's why I'm leaving his for last. And then it was a response to the guy who I was debating. So this is what he says: I could understand why you would say things like, it's not the Wild West, or why even have a driver's license or a trades license, etc. And I'd like to give you my thoughts on licenses, but that's a long discussion for another day. I'll give you a hint. I'm anti-state. With that being said, thank you for sharing your thoughts, but allow me to give you my viewpoint. First, let's start with natural rights. People are born with certain natural or God-given rights, aka inalienable rights that governments can neither grant nor revoke, including life, liberty, and property. An important thing to point out in that glorious trifecta of natural rights is what is meant by property. The idea of property goes beyond just land and belongings, but also refers to the individual's self, which includes happiness and well-being. That also means the protection of oneself, one's land, and one's belongings. Thus, people have the right to protect themselves from anyone looking to harm them, kill them, steal from them, or overpower them for any criminal reason. Oh, and yes, that includes the right to protect themselves from the biggest criminal of all, a tyrannical government. Now, as for your comment about the Wild West, I think I'd prefer the Wild West to modern day society. I think you're making an assumption that the Wild West was, well, wild. That's a gross inaccuracy. Following excerpt from Amelia David. The Wild West, simply put, wasn't that wild. The law was highly abided and in the untamed lands. According to the Mises Institute, property rights were protected and civil order prevailed, thanks to private agencies that provided the necessary basis for an ordinary society in which property was protected and conflicts were resolved, such as organized land clubs, cattlemen's associations, mining camps, and wagon trains. Historian W. Eugene Hollion, I think I'm pronouncing his last name right, Hollion, claims the West was a far more civilized, more peaceful, and safer place than American society today, as violence was not so culturally ingrained as popular history and the silver screen leads us to believe. In fact, if we really wish to speak of violence in the Old West, we must speak about the real source, the federal government's policies against the Plains Indians. And then he goes to further say, if you gave me a choice to time travel back in time to reside in Deadwood or walk the streets of modern-day Chicago, a city with one of the strictest gun laws in the U.S., I'd take Deadwood all day long. As for the issue of training you brought up, there are plenty of people who own guns now who do not have training, and there are people with concealed carry licenses who do not keep up with their training either. This idea that people just want to show their toughness is a huge generalization. Sorry, I couldn't get that word out. Sure, there may be some people that are like that, but I assure you they are the minority. Those wannabe tough guys with guns are already walking among us anyways. They will not miraculously appear in droves because there was no permit required. The reality is, people who want to carry a firearm usually are people who have a genuine interest in self-protection and the protection of others. They do not want to be, quote-unquote, a hero. They hope they never have to use a firearm, but are prepared to. Thus, they are significantly more likely to get the required training needed to feel confident with their firearm. If someone doesn't feel comfortable with firearms, then they probably shouldn't have one, but only they can make that decision. My point in writing this isn't to change your mind, but rather to present another viewpoint in a respectful manner. That's all. I'm quite confident that we will still disagree, which is totally cool. I almost forgot. 6 of the 10 safest states to live in are permitless carry states. And one of them, Vermont, a traditionally blue state, hasn't required a permit to carry a firearm since it became a state in 1791. Does that mean that a permitless carry automatically translate to low crime? No, but it is, however, worth mentioning. I'll leave it there and will not be commenting on this anymore because you and my cousin have given us all enough to read. And then he just gave a little guy sticking his tongue out emoji. So again, he worded it very well, and he kept it. He doesn't take jabs like I do, which I tend to do. But I think I'll leave with that. But I'd love to know y'all's thoughts after hearing what I had to say. Are you pro-gun? Are you anti-gun? How do you feel about Texas becoming constitutional carry, knowing that there's other states that have been that way for many, many years, and Texas is just now finally catching up? I mean, growing up in Texas and being a Texan my whole life, it is kind of funny to me that we took this long to become constitutional carry. But I'm still curious into what you think and your view on it. Let me know. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? Do you have anything to add to what I've said? Or do you have a counterpoint that maybe the guy that I was talking to didn't mention that, would sway me the other way? I'm very interested in hearing the conversation. So again, whatever platform you're listening to this on, leave a comment. Let us know. If you'd like to email the show, you can at cognitivediscoursepodcast@gmail.com. That's cognitivediscoursepodcast@gmail.com. And then you can rant away on that, and give me your thoughts there. That'd probably be the best place to reach me. Or you can join the Facebook group, join the Instagram. But if you want to be on the show for sure, definitely, and you want your views shared, I'd be more than happy to do that, and read your thoughts and then comment on those thoughts. But with that being said, enjoy your Friday, have a safe weekend, and until next time.